All right. I'm so excited about tonight because, Anthony, when did I reach out to you first? Like a year and a half ago? And I asked Anthony if he would do it. He was like, yeah, but he's a little bit busy. And life is all about timing. I've said this many times, personally, professionally, and the stars aligned. Sean was with Anthony in Saudi Arabia. They had a conversation, and we kind of triangulated and kind of all came together, and we're here today. But I've known Anthony for almost 15 years, from dating back to my days at the Core Club. And I will tell you, I will never forget the day I met Anthony, because Jenny, who's the founder of the Core Club, brought me over and introduced me to him. And he was like, yeah. And he looked me up and down. He's like, yeah, so what are you all about? And I was like, holy he was just, yeah, so what are you doing here? And I was a little intimidated.
I just wanted to know what you did to lose your hair.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
Well, it was a long, arduous process, years in the making. It wasn't one particular event, I assure you. But anyways, from that moment on, I was like, wow, who is this guy, right? At the time, he wasn't, big shot Anthony Scaramucci, Mr. He was Mr. Finance, but he wasn't Mr. White House press secretary. We'll talk about that later. But so I'm so excited because I've wanted to have this conversation for quite some time. Anthony, thank you for coming. It's going to be a really, really fun night. We're going to have a moderated conversation with Anthony and Sean, and then we definitely want your questions. We want your participation. So as they're talking, start getting those questions ready. And by the way, I want to say hello to everyone on the live stream. Feel free to get your questions ready as well in the chat box. We're happy to take them. All right, a little bit about our moderator, Sean McManus, who is a friend, who is a Faena Rose member, and I always like to say a hell of a nice guy as well. But let's talk a little bit about his background. Sean is, he's the co-founder of M+D, which is a strategic communications firm that guides some of the world's most influential the world's most influential people in media, technology, and foundations, as well as global brands on interactive content development, partnership, and international policy. Sean was also the director of programs at The Economist magazine, overseeing conferences and custom content globally. He also worked at The Atlantic, launching the conference business for their digital platform called Quartz, which I read regularly. Sean regularly advises CEOs in the area of communication strategy, thought leadership, and corporate branding. He started his career as a journalist and has written for the New York Times, New York Magazine, and numerous other publications. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome the one and only Sean McManus. Thank you. Who's going to introduce you?
All right, here we are.
All right, thanks, Sean, for having me.
Thank you, Pablo and the Faena Rose team for hosting us here tonight. This is going to be a lot of fun. As Pablo mentioned, get your questions ready. We want to make this interactive, and it's going to be a fun night. I'm incredibly excited to have a conversation with a true rock star in the world of investment, politics, business, finance, and media.
My mother wrote this for you? Did my mother write it? Because if she wrote it, these guys are going to be here a long time.
She's texted me. She's like, did you call him a rock star? I'm like, Anthony Scaramucci, who sometimes goes by the Mooch. For those of you who don't know, Anthony is the founder of Skybridge Capital, a hedge fund based in New York. He is also a frequent commentator on CNBC, lately around topics such as crypto, which is having a tough week.
I noticed.
And we will dive into that more tonight.
Tough 3 weeks.
Tough couple weeks. Anthony is also the host of a fantastic podcast called Mooch FM, which I hope all of you will listen to, where he interviews all kinds of interesting people on a wide range of issues. He is also the author of 4 books that explore issues around business, finance, politics, entrepreneurship, resilience, and most recently, the former president. Anthony is the host and founder of one of the most influential finance conferences in the world as well, called SALT, which is quickly expanding to become an international media platform. Welcome, Anthony. Thank you for being here.
All right, thank you. That was very nice. Thank you. A lot there. You didn't mention I got fired from the White House, so you could have put that in there. But you didn't mention it. That's fine. They know anyway.
Anthony, I was just going to say that I think some of the people in this room, it's fair to say, have tried to block out the last 4 years of the Trump administration from memory. But we're going to take a little trip down memory lane tonight.
Don't block it out. You got to learn from it. Don't block it out.
Well, that's exactly right. So we're going to go back to 2017, where Anthony, the guy sitting next to me, spent an illustrious 11 days as Director of Communications.
Well, I just want to thank Sean for not saying 10, because sometimes people do say that. It hurts my feelings. I mean, why chip me out of 9% of my White House career? But I appreciate you saying 11.
The Mooch comments on news articles.
Even President Trump, when he rails on me, when he used to rail on me on Twitter, he said 11. I said, all right, at least he's got the number right.
So it was a beautiful 11 days. And you actually wrote a book about this, Anthony, which I do want to talk about because I think it's kind of a larger story about America and how we got here and where we've been. And so I was going to ask you, if you don't mind, starting tonight by sort of walking through the history and the journey that you had with President Trump. Let's start from the beginning. When you endorsed him, you were serving as an economic advisor to his campaign, and then you became communications director. So tell us that journey.
All right, well, it's a cautionary tale. It should start out with listen to your wife. Okay, how's about that? Okay, because my wife Deirdre, who's here, she probably hates Trump almost as much as Melania hates him. I mean, it's fucking close. Okay, I mean, it's close. And so she was like, "Don't go anywhere near this guy." And so I'm going to start at the end because I think it's important, and then I'm going to go to any part of the story that you want. But when you grow up like I did, I grew up in a blue-collar neighborhood and a blue-collar family. My dad was a crane operator for 42 years. And when I got into Harvard Law School, my mother thought it was Hartford Law School. Okay, she had no clue. She's like, "You're going to Hartford?" I said, No, Mom, I'm going to Harvard. Why would they call it Hartford if it's not in Hartford? Because it's called Harvard, Mom. Okay, and my wife can verify that. She's 85 years old, January 30th. No clue. Okay, so my parents, we didn't know anything from the Stanley Kaplan course. We didn't know anything. And so to make the transition from that neighborhood into Goldman Sachs, out of Goldman Sachs, to get the opportunity, and I built 2 businesses in the interim, get the opportunity to work in the White House, I had my pride and my ego talking. Trump is batshit crazy, no problem, I'm gonna go anyway. You shouldn't go work for the guy, he's a malevolent guy, you're gonna end up getting scullied, scurried, something like that. No problem. I'm gonna take a round peg, put it in a square hole, because I have to fit my personal narrative as a result of my pride and my ego. And so I want to start out with that because I want you to understand it from that framework, because when you're making decisions in your life, take your pride and ego out of the decision making. If you're an investor, professional career, a relationship, sometimes you can be right or you can be married, right? You have to figure out what you want to do, right? Right, you're nodding your head, okay? You were right a lot, but you should have shut your mouth, okay? I'm just, we can talk about it later, okay? But the point I'm making is, so now I'm with Jeb Bush, who I had breakfast with. Deirdre and I went to have breakfast with him this morning. I'm working for Jeb. He drops out of the race, South Carolina, and he does not endorse Trump, and he will not endorse Trump. And Trump called me because I had met with Donald Trump. Deirdre and I actually went to a Yankee game with him 10 or 12 years ago. I had worked at CNBC when he was at NBC working on The Apprentice. We had a okay relationship. Now, you're never friends with Donald Trump. If anybody comes to the Faena and says, "Oh, I'm really good friends with Donald Trump," they don't understand the relationship, okay, or they're fibbing or they're exaggerating. You're not friends with Donald Trump because he doesn't have any friends. He's got acquaintances, but he two-dimensionalizes people because that's part of the way narcissists act. You're just an object in their field of vision. You're not a friend. You're not a three-dimensional person. And so he invited me to breakfast the morning after the last Apprentice. It was the finale of The Apprentice. The very next day, I'm at Trump Tower, 26th floor, and you gotta love Trump because his desk is here, your chair is there, okay? So you're like, I'm a short guy, but I'm like looking up at the guy, right? He had some boogers in his nose, by the way, but we won't go there. And then I'm looking up at the guy, and he's like, okay, listen, how you doing? I said, great. You're great on TV. What do you want to eat? I said, no, I'm fine. He says, okay, did you see I was great on The Apprentice last night, wasn't I? I said, well, I didn't see it. He says, you didn't see it. Oh, you were the only one that didn't see it. I mean, I had great ratings. And what the hell were you doing? I said, I was watching Fox News. He says, okay. He says, yeah, those guys don't think I'm running for president. But you know what? I'm running for president. I've got 4 or 5 guys downstairs. We're building a campaign office. That was my last apprentice. I'm running for president. I looked at the guy. I said, okay, you're not running for president. This is like a total publicity stunt. You're definitely not running for president. I said, by the way, when you were on The Apprentice, Fox News had you at a 2% number in the polls. And then he said something that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. He said, yeah, they don't think I'm running. They're not taking me seriously. When I announce and I start the campaign process, I'm going to go to the top of the polls, and I'm going to stay there until I get to the Republican nomination. And I looked at him, and I said, okay. I said, I'm not buying it. He says, well, I want you to come work for me. And by the way, I don't need your money. I just want you to come work for me. You'll provide me with media advocacy. I was with Jeb. I was loyal to Jeb. I had worked for Governor Romney, and I said, listen, I can't do that. I'm with Jeb Bush. I got my clients are with him. He's a very good guy. Jeb's got a little low energy, don't you think? I said, not really. I think he's a great guy. He goes, yeah, he'll never win. When I knock him off the stage, will you come work for me? And then I said, yes, I'll come work for you. So the very next day after Jeb left, he called me. I went to go see him with Senator Scott Brown. Sean, do you remember Scott Brown? Mm-hmm. He was the senator in Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. He replaced Ted Kennedy. Mm-hmm. And he was a Republican, actually, but the Massachusetts didn't like the Obamacare plan, and he was in there as a wedge to block the Obamacare. He beat Martha Coakley, who was the Massachusetts DA, and he went to Tufts with me, and so the two of us went to go see Trump together, and that was, it was just expletives and a crazy show. It was worse than any reality television show you could ever be involved in. Yeah. And I showed Trump the map, and I said, okay, if you want to raise money, this is what we have to do. This is how we raise money for Jeb. This is how we raise money for Mitt. And he said, okay, you're in. I said, I'm in. When's the first campaign rally? Well, we're going to do an event in New Mexico, and then we're going to fly to, you have to forgive me, the first name of the guy is Tom. He's in trouble now. He was in the... Tom Barrack. That's exactly right. So we were at Tom Barrack's house in Brentwood, California, beautiful house. So we're going to stop in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and then we're going to go to Tom's house for a big fundraiser. Mm-hmm. I said, no problem. He had Wolfgang Puck, cooking for the fundraiser. Yeah. So we fly out on Trump's plane. We land in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Trump comes off. He's a big guy. He comes off the podium. And the first thing he does, he looks at the cop. The cop's trying to take a picture. How are you doing, Mr. Trump? He's going to say, hey, is there a Jimmy John's here? I'm like starving. And the cop was like, I'm not sure. He gets on like the radio. He's like, is there a Jimmy? Yeah. No, sir, there's no Jimmy. What about Burger King? Is there a Burger King here? And he's like, Mooch, what do you want from Burger King? I said, I don't want anything from Burger King. Who eats at Burger King? Okay, so he gave the cop $200 out of his pocket. And he said, could you order some Whopper Juniors and Whoppers with fries, and could you have them in the plane? I'm going to be back at the plane in like 90 minutes. The guy's like, sir, I'm like a cop. I can't really do that. So anyway, I'm just giving you detail so you know how effing crazy the whole thing is, okay? Now we're in the motorcade over to the Albuquerque Civic Center. The Secret Service gives you a day pin. Anybody ever be with the Secret Service? So there's a little pin. It's like you wear the pin. If the shooting starts, they see the pin. They won't shoot you. I'm fucking like, yeah, get the fucking pin. Yeah. But I'm like, are you kidding me? Yeah. I never did anything like this before. Yeah. I'm behind the stage, and I saw something there. Jeb would be mad at me for saying this, but I'll tell you, I saw something there that he did not see with Jeb. You want to know what it was? People. People. We could get 5 people in New Hampshire. It was like a miracle. 3 of them were us, and there were 2 other people. Yeah. Trump, we had 9,000 people in the Civic Center. We had 4,000 people in the outdoor facility where the flat screens were to hear his presentation. And so I took the day pin off of my lapel, I put it in my pocket, and I crossed into the crowd, over the security perimeter, and I went into the crowd to introduce myself to some people, say hello, and say, hey, why are you here? And I will never forget this for the rest of my life. One guy said to me, well, you know, I'm here, my dad and I worked at the same factory. My dad was there for 30 years, he retired, he's got a little pension, but I got laid off in my 12th year. And oh, by the way, Anthony, you think you're in New Mexico? You're not in New Mexico. New Mexico, okay, that would be Mexico. And we lost 65,000 factories in the United States after the signing of NAFTA. And we hollowed out all of these towns, guys. Miami's thriving, New York is thriving, but I'm talking about the Rust Belt, the center of the country. We wiped these people out. And he says, so I got a job at Lowe's, the home improvement place. I've got a job delivering Domino's Pizza. I've got 3 kids. My wife is a dental assistant. We are really struggling. Mr. Trump is going to bring the jobs back. Back. Trump made a speech. We got on the plane. I hooked myself up to the internet. I was trying to figure out what my dad's union was. I think I called my parents. He gave me the union. It was like Local 986. I went on the website to figure out what the wages were for a crane operator on Long Island in 2016. And so my dad's wages, his 1976 wages, would have been down 27.5%. Okay, so we grew up, I would never dishonor my dad by telling him I grew up poor. Didn't grow up poor Washington school system. I just met somebody here from Great Neck, so you know the area. But we were in middle class. We were in a tiny little house. We had 1 full bath, and we had 5 people in the house. And he got up in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. My mother put the lunch pail in the refrigerator at 10 p.m., and he went to work. And today, the very same job, through no fault of my dad's, we're on an EBT card. Does everybody understand that? We need assistance from the government because down 26% with the cost of living increases, we're not making it. And so I looked over at Trump and I said, you know, you're actually talking to my dad. He just happens to be born 35 years, 40 years after my dad, but he doesn't have a white-collar skill set, and he's struggling in the society. And we took 20 to 25% of the country who were once aspirational, working-class people, economically aspirational. You know, my job sucks. My son Anthony's going to go to Harvard Law School, and he's going to make something of himself. So I don't care. But those very people are now, you know what, my job sucks and my son can't get a job. And I'm pissed off about it, and I'm pissed at the establishment, I'm pissed at the political establishment, I'm pissed at the business establishment, and oh, by the way, I'm now pissed at the medical establishment because we have a disease and you're telling me to take a vaccine, and you know what, I don't want to take the vaccine because I want to stick a finger in your eyeball and pop out your eyeball because of what's happening to me and my family in this country. Mm-hmm. So, in summary, I left and I said, okay, he's got to win. We're going to figure out a way to make this better. You can like him or dislike him. He saw it. I'm going to make a confession here. I did not see it. I went to Tufts and Harvard, Goldman, built 2 hedge funds, got on the board of a couple of big fancy pants things, went to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, FII, and what happens to you when you hang out with very wealthy people, you get the confirmed biases of the very, very wealthy people, and you start to lose the grounding wire of what is really going on in the country. And Trump saw it. Now, you can like him, you can dislike him. Obviously, he's a bozo. I'm happy to explain why. But he saw that. And he had an opportunity to do something transformative. He could have been a post-partisan president. He could have broken the mold because he didn't really owe anybody as a result of the way he won. But he didn't have the personality to do it. He's literally one of the most insecure people I have ever met in my life. Okay, he doesn't have the... Insecure people are threatened by other people's intellect. Secure people are like, wow, you're a lot smarter than me. Come on in. Okay? The A player hires the A++ player. But the B or C players looking for D's and E's because they can't, or F's, they can't handle it. So when Fauci's telling him to do something, he's got to like steamroll the guy. Or if Milley, who's an unbelievable guy, by the way, the Joint Chief of Staff Chairman, is telling him to do something, he'll do the opposite because of the insecurity. You see what I mean? Yeah. And so fast forward, none of us think he's going to win. None of us think he's going to win. He doesn't think he's going to win. I walk into his office at 6 p.m. Tuesday, November the 8th, 2016. I walk into the office. He's behind the desk. I learned to stand up now, so at least I could be on par with the guy, right? He looks at me and says, "What are you doing tomorrow?" You know how he moves his face, "What are you doing tomorrow?" I said, "What am I doing tomorrow?" What do you mean, what am I doing tomorrow? He goes, "Well, what are you doing tomorrow? This is going to be over tomorrow. What are you doing tomorrow?" I said, "What am I doing?" I said, "I don't know. Are we winning or losing?" He goes, "Oh, come on, give me a break. I'm moving my plane from LaGuardia Airport to JFK because you can't take off internationally from LaGuardia. I'm fueling it up at Signature Aviation. I'll be out of here tomorrow morning. I'm heading to Scotland. I'm going to go play some golf. Let her have her day in the sun. Let her have her day in the sun." You know how he talks. "And it'd be better for everybody for me to get the hell out of here." He did not think he was winning the election. He's been honest about that in interviews, by the way. And so now it's 8 o'clock, election night. I've been asked to speak at the New York Times, representing the campaign. I mean, not the best place for a Republican, the New York Times, just let you know. I mean, Harvey Weinstein, just before this guy blew up, he was in the front row, okay? So I go in there, they interview me, they're like, "Well, Trump's losing the election." And I said, "Well, he might lose the election. I don't know." I said, "But we're playing for the last down, the last inning." I've used every sports metaphor known to man. And I said, "So we don't know, but we're going to play to the end." I said, "Well, let me tell you about the country." And I told them that story. And I'm telling you, we have to fix this. This is a responsibility for every single person to figure this out. We can't detach ourselves from 20 to 25% of the country. If we do that, it's going to be a nightmare for our children. Do you want to live in a barbed-wired security compound with your McMansion? You're sitting there in your security while your fellow neighbors are struggling? I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it. We have to fix the problem. And we've got a lot of apathetic politicians that have no interest in fixing it. So I'll shut up in a second so you can ask another question, but let me just say one last thing. He fucking wins. You're allowed to curse here, right? It's the Faena.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So he fucking wins. Can you believe it? It's 2 o'clock in the morning. The futures are down. I'm calling him. I'm like, "Look, you got to put some stuff in the speech about the business community." And by the way, he was scared. Scared. And for the first 2 days after the win, he was upright, uptight, and he was listening to people. What should I do? Who should I bring in? And then he went right back into his... He said on Wednesday at 11 o'clock in his office, "I'm going to be more presidential than Abraham Lincoln." You know how the guy talks, right? "I'm not going to tweet," he said. I said, "I'm not making this shit up." I said, "Okay." And then he looks at me and says, "You're going to come work for me." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm hosting Wall Street Week. I got my business. I'm not moving my kids to Washington." He said, No, you're going to come work for me." And I said, "No, I'm not going to come work for you." Okay? The Friday, I'm on the couch at Fox and Friends. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, and coming over the Chiron is the presidential transition, the executive committee for the president's transition team. He named 16 people to the transition team. I'm one of them. Didn't even tell me. I'm sitting on a couch. I got the microphone on.
Oh, shit.
Brian, whatever his name is, another Looney Tune guy. He's looking at, "So what do you think? What are you gonna do in the administration?" I mean, you want to talk about losing your hair, Sean? Forget it. I looked at the guy and said, "I don't know what I'm doing." I called him. He's laughing on the phone. "Ha ha ha! I'm the president. I'm your president. You're gonna come work for me." So I did it. I did that job for 8 weeks. We staffed the Treasury Department. We interviewed people for the Department of Defense. We did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews. And he asked me to be the OPL director. And so you guys probably don't know what that is, but that's like being the president's chief networking officer. You're going to interface with, it's almost like being the Secretary of Commerce inside the White House. You're going to interface with business and local politicians and all that stuff. And George didn't want me to do it. I had the fever. I had the ego, prideful fever. I said, yes, I'll do it. Reince Priebus, you remember him? I got great fucking nicknames for him, but we don't want to. But I mean, you can't. I mean, there are bad people on planet Earth. This guy was like the worst. Okay. Yeah. So he, he was the type of guy like this is like Washington goes. They smile in your face.
Yeah.
They're trying to pick your eyeball out while they're smiling. They want to put the eyeball in their martini glass. Yeah. Okay, while they're smiling at you. Yeah. They put the eyeball on a toothpick, and it's in the eye. Your eyeball's bleeding, and they're still smiling while they're talking to you. This is the Reince Priebus, right? So he blocked me from the job, right? So I got pissed about that. I called Trump. I said, listen, Bannon and Priebus, they don't want me in the job. I'm cool. I don't want the job. God bless you. If you ever want to get rid of the two of them, call me. Yeah. I'll come take care of it. He fucking called me, right? Can you believe that? So now he calls me, okay? And he says, what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, what am I doing? He says, well, can you come to the Oval Office? I said, okay. Took the shuttle down. I came in through the East Wing, go to the Oval Office. I think I told somebody at the cocktail party, the Oval Office is very small. I've never been to the Oval Office. I was like, walk in there, I was like, wow, it looks so much bigger on TV. He's not in the Oval Office. He's in the study off the Oval Office. They take me through the study. He's got the DirecTV remote in his hand. He's got a 75-inch flat screen that he mounted over the Lincoln portrait. And I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, the heat coming off the TV. He goes, oh, no, the Parks Commission said it was fine. Shut up, sit down. He's got the thing, and he was wearing his bifocals. He does wear bifocals. He doesn't like people seeing them. He has bifocals on. He says, okay, you were right about those two guys. I'd like to get rid of those two guys. And I want you to come in and help me. I said, okay. I said, well, what am I going to do? Picks up the phone. He calls White House operations. He says, are there any offices open here in the West Wing? And the guy says, yes, the director of communications office is open. You fired Mike Dubkey. You didn't replace him. Okay, thank you. Hangs up the phone. He goes, you're the White House communications director.
Wow. Wow.
And now, again, guys, this doesn't reflect well on me, but I'm sharing it with you because I want it to help you, okay? I say yes. Yeah. You don't say yes in a situation like that. No. Everybody understand that? I'm not qualified to be the White House communications director. I do say that to him. I said, Mr. President, I'm not qualified to be the White House communications director. Yeah, that's fine. You'll figure it out. He also said, do you think I'm qualified to be president? Don't answer the question. That's what he said. He said, you'll figure it out. He's a funny guy. I'm going to be very honest about the guy, right? And he says, so you'll start tomorrow. I'm a little tired. You'll start tomorrow. And I said, okay. Stupid. Okay, just not the right thing to do. You can ask a next question.
No.
We can go in any direction that you want to go, and I'm happy to talk about
let's finish
the whole experience. I'm happy to talk about the aftermath. I'm happy to talk about how we got into the fight. I'm happy to do whatever you want to talk about.
Let's just continue that line of thought, because you took the job, you went in, and about a week and a half later, you did an interview. So tell people what happened, how it ended.
I'm from New York. I'm a kid from Long Island, okay? I was talking to an Italian kid from my town whose father worked on the same construction site as me. And you could Google it, because we're in mixed company, but I said something about Steve Bannon that he definitely can't do, and I'll just hold my hand up. You get a sense for what I said.
Self-relating.
It's totally fake news. He can't do it. And I said it as a joke to an Italian kid from Long Island. He was recording me on the telephone.
Ryan Lizzo from the New Yorker.
And he ran to CNN with the recording, okay? And I got fired. And I said to Ryan, I said, we know each other for 50 years. Our parents go back to 1967. Are you really going to do this to me? I said, it was a joke. Oh, I think it's an important story to tell, and we're telling it. And do you have any other comments you want to make about? Yeah. I said, I do. I said, it's very transactional. You and I have now lost our relationship. I'm going to get fired as a result of this, and I don't think it's necessarily the right thing to do. He got fired after that, by the way. Karma is a bitch. Yeah. But then that became another big deal. Okay, if you're having a bad day, I want you to think about me getting fired from the White House on July 31st, 2017, okay? General Kelly comes in, the first thing he does is fire me. Him and I have become very good friends. I think you know that.
Yeah.
We've done 7 or 8 speaking tours together. He's an unbelievable guy. Likes Deirdre more than he likes me. I mean, but that's obvious. But we have a great relationship today. No grudge, General Kelly. I did something stupid when I did a job, when I did an interview on Colbert or Seth Meyers, or you picked the late night comedian. I owned it. I didn't say, oh, it's not my fault, or can you believe that guy did that to me? I said, no. That's a vulture's den, or whatever you want to call it. You're in a big aquarium and there's sharks everywhere. I fed him some chum. He bit my arm off. My fault. I own it. I am not blaming President Trump, John Kelly, or anybody. I'm blaming myself. I'm fully accountable for what happened. Mm-hmm. And I tried to stay loyal to the Republican Party and to the administration because I didn't want to be that sore loser guy. Even though I thought Trump was a little nuts, I'm like, okay, hopefully he'll figure this out. He'll grow into the job. And he doesn't need somebody like me railing on him. Okay, so I left it, let it go. And, John and I became very close now, General Kelly. But if you're having a bad day, I want you to think of me getting shot out of a cannon from the White House, rolled in broken glass, and then salted with margarita salt by every late night comedian, and then lit up on Saturday fucking Night Live. Can you believe that? I mean, it got lit up everywhere. And look, you got to take it like a man. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to pretend it didn't happen? You own it, and you move on. And that is another cautionary tale because you've had a stumble in your life. Who hasn't? Okay, I bet you if we got in a room together, we had a beer or a cocktail, and you were being open and vulnerable about your life, you'd be like, yeah, I did this wrong or I did that wrong. But you know what you got to do when that happens? You got to own it, apologize for it, and then take the millstone of regret off of your neck and put it down beside you. I don't wake up in the morning and say, you know what, let me kick myself in the pants this morning. I got fired from the White House 4 years ago. It was an embarrassing moment for me. Let me kick myself in the pants and let me self-loathe over it. Can't do that in life. You got to move forward and live in the present. So, you want to hear how the fight started or not yet?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, you want to go there? Yeah. Fight start? Okay, so I'm doing these comedy shows. Bill Maher and I are like meth fans together. We're like hanging out at Craig's in Hollywood, having a good time. I take Deirdre out. I was on the show with Stormy Daniels. She confirmed some horrifying things about Trump. We'll have to do that at the cocktail hour. I was like, oh my God. Just trust me, you'll never have a shiitake mushroom again. We'll just leave it at that. I haven't been to a Japanese restaurant since I talked to Stormy Daniels at the after party of the Bill Maher show. We'll just leave it at that. But so now I'm on this show. The president has a tendency to really try to rile people and upset people. He wants to be at the top of the news every single morning, and so let's say controversial things and upsetting things. He tweeted out a remark, it was very nativist, very racist, about the 4 women congressmen. This would be, one of them is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Some of them are Latin American, some of them are Muslim American. And he said that these women needed to go back to the country that they originally came from. I think that's totally wrong. Okay, they used to say that to my grandmother. She's Italian American. She got here in 1923. The racist and nativist, like Charles Lindbergh, get back to the country. You don't belong here. And I think it's totally wrong. It's actually un-American to do that. And so I'm on the show. I'm defending Donald Trump. I'm defending him. And Bill is hitting me hard. And I enjoy the sparring. And so no problem. But then he asked me a question. He says, so how do you feel about the comment he made about the squad, the 4 women? I said, geez, I really wish the president wouldn't talk like that. That's a racist and nativist trope. They said that to my Italian-American grandmother. Used to upset her. I remember her talking about it and being very upset about it. And he's the president of the United States. He should not talk like that. So now we're back in the after party. Bill says to me, he's going to light you up tomorrow on Twitter. And I said, no way. I've been loyal to him. I gave him lots of money. I worked for him. I got fired. I kept the party line. There's no way. And Bill says to me, no, he's a demagogue. You went 7 for 8 tonight on this show. You got to go 13 for 10 for Trump. And so since that's mathematically impossible, and you were 7 for 8, tomorrow he's going to light you up. And I said, okay, I'll bet you dinner at Craig's that he doesn't light me up. So 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're at the Beverly Hills Hotel. I'm in the cabana. He starts lighting up Bill Maher. I turn to Deirdre, I'm like, he's lighting up Bill Maher. I said, he probably watched the show. I'm probably going to be next. Nothing. Nothing. So we go out to dinner. I'm with a friend of ours. We're at dinner, 7 o'clock LA time, 10 o'clock on the East Coast, lighting me up. He is lighting me up with his nonsense, right? And I'm going to tell you something, okay? You get lit up by the President of the United States. Let me just use this as a prop. You see how white this is? Baby, how white was I when he lit me up? I mean, I was whiter than this sheet of paper. He's the President of the United States, okay? He's the most powerful person, elected official in the world. He's lighting me up on Twitter. It is very uncomfortable, okay? White as a sheet, okay? So, but I'm a New Yorker, and I don't like bullies, so I get up from the seat, I go into the bathroom, I splash water on my face, and then I start lighting him up, okay? You can look up the tweets, right? And I'm a pretty good troller, okay? Trust me, I know how to troll, okay? I'm lighting him. I think I called him the fattest president since William Howard Taft. Because, he hates being so fat, you know what I mean? Like, you can only take a picture of him from the front, because if you take a picture from the side, he's like too girthy. He hates it, right? So he goes nuts, okay? And then he really starts hitting me, and then the fight really starts, and we start going after each other. And then that was it, and then, I worked about as hard as anybody could work to defeat him. You couldn't have worked any harder. In fact, I built a home studio, and yes, I did CNN, yes, I did MSNBC, yes, if they let me on Fox, but they never would let me on Fox, but when they did let me on, I was out there hitting them. But, because I know how the media works, I booked myself on every local news channel in every swing state at 6 p.m. Because you may get your news from CNN or MSNBC or Fox, but the common man or woman gets it from local news, 6 p.m., and then if it's an interesting thing, they'll run it again at 11. So there I was, Wisconsin, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Every night I was calling, I had my PR person call or one of my assistants, hey, Anthony Scaramucci, you'd like to come on? Oh, God, yeah, that'd be great. Local news station. And I had it hooked into the satellite in my house, HD television, and I pounded this guy. Okay, there was one guy who was an African-American radio host. He's in Pennsylvania. Very conservative guy. He says, what does Trump have to, who cares about you? Because all you are is a D-list celebrity. Why would the president even care about you? So you know what I said to the guy? I said, you know what, I'm very offended. I am not a D-list celebrity. I happen to be a double D-list celebrity, okay? And I'm telling you right now, I'm going in for breast reduction surgery. I expect to come out as a B-lister. Okay, so stop picking on the way I look, okay? And I just clobbered him on the show. And, Trump beat himself, by the way. If you think any of that helped, it probably didn't. It was very satisfying for me because I'm Italian. But let me tell you something, he beat himself. He had the chance to win that election. And by the way, he didn't lose by much. Let's just go over the math. He lost by 41,000 votes in 3 swing states. Yes, he lost the popular vote by 8 million, but he was neck and neck in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Michigan. And had he been more health care in his orientation, less bellicosity of rhetoric, he would have beaten Joe Biden. So we are in a struggle right now for the democracy. We're in a struggle to re-engage this 20 to 25% of the people that have disaffected from the society. And we are in a struggle to renew the country. Now, you want to hang out, and you want to go to Art Basel, and you want to drink tequila, and how do you say empanada? Empanada. Yeah. They're fucking great. I mean, we can hang out, we can go to the restaurant here, we can eat those, we can drink tequila, and we can let the place burn down around. You want to let it burn down? I don't want to let it burn down. Okay, because I'm telling you, my life story is not happening in any other country. Because if my grandfather was a Mason in Italy, guess what I'm going to be? I'm going to be a Mason. Not going to Harvard. Not going to happen. Okay, but you can come here and you can do anything. You see that? There's a very large group of people in the United States that now think that they can't do anything. We have to fix that. Has everybody got that? You got to get involved. You got to fix it. What are you doing to fix it? Not, I mean, it's you, the politician. They want your money, they want to support, okay, you want the job. What are you doing to fix it? Well, I'm going to fight with Nancy Pelosi, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to screen my enemies out of my congressional district. Let me submit this to everybody. Are you in a democracy if the person that you're electing can pick his or her own voters? Repeat that. The person that we're electing is now choosing the voters. These congressional districts that look like geometric shapes that all of us could recognize from ninth grade geometry now look like jigsaw puzzle pieces.
You're talking about the voting rights legislation.
Well, then you have the voting rights legislation. That's a whole other issue. I'm talking about the gerrymandering.
Yeah.
The voting rights legislation is even worse. But let me just be...
But Anthony, let me stop you there
Okay.
because, I mean, is that, what are the, I mean, is the Republican Party not responsible for driving?
Okay, so you guys aren't going to like me, okay? This is an indictment of both parties. Okay. Both parties are gerrymandering. Both parties have exercised elements of voter control. The Republicans right now are worse about it. Okay, that's the truth. But they are both bad, but the Republicans are way worse, and the Republicans have decided, okay, we're a group of aging white people, we're buying catheters and walkers from Fox News commercial interruptions, and we're very angry, and so, but we don't want to change anything. So what we want to do is we want black and brown people not to vote, because if black and brown people don't vote, then we're going to stay in power. But right now, we're going to get outmatched by the black and brown people, so let's restrict them.
Right.
So Stacey Abrams is running in Georgia, 2018. She's running against Brian Kemp. You have one voting booth in the black communities for 10,000 eligible voters. You have one voting booth in the white communities for 600 whites. So he wins the election. So Stacey Abrams, I actually want Stacey to run the New York Mets, okay, because she's brilliant, okay, and I do desperately want a championship before I'm dead, and so I'd like Stacey to run the Mets, because what she did was she said, oh, okay, this is the number you're going to do on me, no problem. I'm going to have my community wait online for 3 days. We're going to hand them water, and they're going to wait online. You're only going to put one voting booth for the 10,000 people? No problem. They're going to start on Wednesday when the early voting, the Wednesday of the prior week, and they're going to wait online for 3 days.